Yes, I think we were encouraged and surprised by the fact that there was a good proposal put forward for Milsom Quarter, and we recognise there's an awful lot to think through in it. We read through the plan, we talked to advisors, and we think it's good. It's certainly a good start. We also think there's the potential for it to be excellent, and that was the basis of our approach. But what I was left with thinking, and many of us were left with thinking, was, well, this is great for Milsom Quarter, but what about Lansdowne? What about Walcott? What about what's happening in Queen's Square? But also what happens to the south in the area that was redeveloped some years ago, because vacancy rates are rising. And clearly there's something that means that businesses aren't coming back to the city as much as we'd like. So yes, it's good, but I think it has to fit within a much bigger plan for the city, a spatial plan, transport plan, economic development plan, and also, importantly, a community plan about how people who live in the city centre will be affected.
What does the Trust think, then, are the most important things to bear in mind when considering the future of this city?
We definitely feel that having an ambitious approach that refocuses Bath as being the centre, the economic centre for the people who live within Bath and North East Somerset and the surrounding rural counties, but also that is an incredibly strong attractant for tourism, is really important. We would like to see something that's a bit more convincing. There's lots of really good ideas about sustainable transport, about how the park and rides are used, about how we can move more to green transport. There are lots of good ideas about how we kickstart economic regeneration. And it's brilliant to see the Fashion Museum being put at the centre of that with a new home and a new future. What I think we feel, however, is that these ambitions, as they're stated, are good, but they are disconnected. So it's hard to see where they sit into a master plan for the city. And it still comes back to the point that we have lots of businesses in Lansdowne, we have lots of businesses in different parts of the city. They all contribute to its vibrancy, but I think many of them will be thinking, well, what about us? When does our turn come for our area to be supported to the same degree from the council? And a plan would help to do that.
It strikes me that every major development in this city depends upon developers' money. I mean, this is a cash-strapped authority, like most of them are. Doesn't that, in a way, deter any great vision? Because the council knows it can't get anything going without offering either housing or new office space, something that an outside developer might be keen to invest in.
Absolutely agree. I think what was exciting about the plans is the idea of having more housing above shops so that we have a mixed economy and people living within the city centre, which I think is really important for it being loved and protected and cherished and valued by people. And I agree that private investment is absolutely central to all of this happening. We're also aware that there's the likelihood that some of the income that's going to support this will be through the proposal for what happens at the bottom of Walcott Street as well. I don't disagree with all of that, but I think what was missing is we need to know where the evidence of this is coming from an economic development plan or an appraisal from the market. It would be really very comforting to know that the Milsom Quarter plan, and in fact a bigger plan for the city should it arise, was based on a convincing business case to do with discussions with developers about economic development, to be certain that if we build these wonderful new changes into our cityscape and make all these spaces available, will people actually want to come to them?
It strikes me, Alex, that the bottom has dropped out of the office market. I mean, we've got a brand new office block down at their wonderful Quayside development, which has had offices to let signs in it ever since the thing was constructed.
Yes, I agree, and again, I think it all comes back down to an evidence base. I love the ambition, don't get me wrong. I think what we need to know is that if we have X number of thousand square metres of new office space, that we have some confidence that businesses are going to come to it because there are the transport links, because there are the communication links that are in place. I think without that, there is a slight concern, and we're very concerned that we will have lots of redundant buildings, and we're aware that if an office is built 1 year and then 5 years down the line it's not being used, it then becomes right for residential development. Or worse, we have increasing vacancies. So it's difficult to know what the future holds, but if the council is going to be making decisions about spatial use, it should be based on a really strong evidence base.
I was going to say the residential development's okay if it's affordable housing.
Affordable, yes, and we would like to see properly affordable housing made available to local residents and people who want to move to Bath as part of that mix.
Now look, Bath Preservation Trust is all about heritage. You are policemen, you are watchdogs of the city. How big is the case for arguing that, like it or not, tourism is still the main income for Bath? It's still the thing that makes it the most money, and that despite COVID, things are starting to recover, and those tourists should be made ever more welcome.
I would always fall down in favour of making sure, as the council and also Bath Preservation Trust and all of the people involved with influencing, debating, discussing, should all be aiming at a mixed economy. There's no doubting at all that the tourist economy is really important to Bath, as it is to the southwest of England. Tourism in its own right is not going to solve all of the economic requirements of the area. We need this to be a thriving hub for local people. It needs to support local office businesses as well. And so tourism is only one part of it. I would agree we need to make sure that the cityscape is supported and better invested in to make sure that we don't lose that tourism economy. Because I'm also aware that in other areas of the country where cities or towns go into decline, tourists cease to go to. And we would be losing something if we lost them. We'd also be losing something if we only focused on that economy. So we must do more to make sure that we're attractive to businesses, maybe through creating more flexible hubs, certainly making a better work-life balance, and encouraging work. I'd like to see the council working with more sectors of business to encourage them in.
I talk quarters, you were the first one to mention a hub. Now look, we are actually in election year, May 23. The whole council goes to the people. Now, I'm sure that every political party, including the ruling Lib Dems, are starting to write their manifestos. If there was one important issue that you thought should be in that, what is it?
One important issue is always a hostage to fortune. There are so many important issues. Climate change is obviously very significant. We've just had a couple of very, very hot days. And on the other hand, in a few months' time, we'll be facing extreme rainfall and moderate, quite weird temperatures that are unfamiliar. And so these are all indicators of significant climate change. So I would definitely like to see that continued as a priority of whichever political party is successful next time around. Heritage, of course, is important. Bath is a living heritage city, and you said earlier about tourism. Tourism is important, and they come here because of our heritage. But I think what COVID did is it refocused people on their own environment. So the heritage of Bath is for the people of Bath first and foremost, and for the tourists that support it, that pay the bills for the people who work in the centre of the city supporting the tourist economy. So it comes back down to we need to make sure that there is a mixed economy supporting what we do in Bath, because that really will drive the ability to invest properly in communities, in transport, in good facilities, and in maintaining this wonderful place that we all love and rely upon.